Alone Together, a DS9 Companion, Episode 1, These Days. It has been about 25 years since the Dominion War ended. The Federation isn't quite the same. Starfleet is much more consistently militarized these days. Earth may be paradise, but humanity is less ideologically empathetic. Since the recent Romulan attempt to extinguish synthetic life by infiltrating Starfleet Command, benevolence is taking a back seat to security these days. Elam Garak has been Castellan of the Cardassian Assembly since the New Order was established following the Dominion War. Garak, of course, also has direct control over a newly resurrected Obsidian Order, though not by title. Julian Bashir is still a doctor on Deep Space Nine, but is also coordinating the activities of Section 31. What we have learned is that upon sharing a consciousness with Luther Sloan using stolen Romulan technology, his genetically enhanced brain committed much of what he learned to his eidetic memory. That information had to be contained, but could be put to good use. He was given little choice in the matter. Maintaining his cover as a chief medical officer in the Bajoran sector met his needs, and he saw no reason to change it.
Mission log, stardate 737114. I'm approaching Cardassia Prime in response to a rather enigmatic request for medical aid from Castellan Garak, the leader of the Cardassian government. Though it's hardly surprising that Garak might be withholding information, it seems that a reunion of sorts will be forthcoming. I've left the infirmary in the capable hands of Dr. Jabara while I'm off the station. I must admit, I'm not entirely sure what to expect. Bashir to Central Command. I've just entered orbit of Cardassia Prime, requesting approval to transport to Cardassia.
Stand by, Doctor. Don't be in such a hurry.
Garak, I didn't expect you to be at Central Command. It's good to hear your voice.
My dear Doctor, are we starting the lies already?
It's true, Garak. It's good to hear your voice. That's not Look, more importantly, if you'll grant approval, I can beam to your current location.
Doctor, I'm not at Central Command. I've merely intercepted your subspace communications link. Unfortunately, Doctor, the Federation will not be setting foot on Cardassia today. And to be quite honest, you don't want to be here.
Garak, your message suggested some urgency in my arrival. Quite frankly, what the hell am I doing here if I can't beam down?
Would you believe pure, unadulterated nostalgia?
Would you?
I've missed you too, Doctor. So, how is life on the station?
Well, Bajoran fashions just aren't the same since you left.
I'm sure.
But much of life has returned to what it once was, as much as it ever could, I suppose.
I'm sorry to hear about Dax.
Thank you. I miss Ezri every day. 10 years. We, Dax and I, we tried to make it work. I was so happy Dax made it back to Trillion time. Ken and I, we were very different people. He's a botanist, can you imagine? Dax as a botanist. I suppose it's why Keiko didn't seem to mind my visits as much. She and Dax had so much to talk about. But, once the Symbiosis Commission discovered our continued relationship, we couldn't.
Doctor, there's no need to explain.
No. Dax always encouraged me to talk about my feelings. Though there's not much else to say, really. I'd never really considered being in love with another man. But it was Dax. Ezri, Jadzia, even Ken, it was Dax, is Dax. But we just couldn't.
It is difficult to find a good counselor to sort out our deepest sorrows these days.
I suppose it is.
You're an honorable man, Doctor. You loved Dax. You could do nothing less than your heart demanded. I know the pain of love all too well, especially a love that has everything working against it.
Ziao.
Ziao, yes. Yes, even exiles have hearts, Doctor. Even Elam Garrick, when it comes right down to it, he has a heart as well. In fact, my heart is partially the reason why I'm here.
So, this is a house call. Damn it, Garrett, why didn't you tell me on Subspace? What are your symptoms? Why don't you want me to beam down?
Well, so many questions. One hardly knows which to answer first.
Your symptoms, Garrett. What is wrong with your heart?
Well, it's not just my heart, Doctor. Actually, the most concerning symptom seems to be a degenerative condition that causes the ill to be especially susceptible to suggestion. Luckily, my infection is relatively new and rather unexplained, as my exposure to the public tends to be limited to state functions and the like. You know, life of a politician.
Ill. Garrett, what are you saying?
A virus, Doctor. Cardassia appears to be facing a minor health issue. We're trying to contain the infection to one region, but we may have moved far too late.
A minor health issue?
Hmm.
You are a champion of understatement. The ill suggests that this isn't just about you, but your ability to hide the facts seems to have been tainted over the years.
Doctor?
Since your speech at the Lacarian City Memorial, the ridges on your neck have grown paler, and your breathing rate has increased.
You liked my speech?
Damn it, Garak, you contacted me. How is this the first time that I'm hearing about this? Why has the planet not been quarantined? Your message said medical aid. I assumed that I was just coming here as a preliminary consultation, having something to do with one of your colonies. Now it sounds like an outbreak that needs to be contained.
Doctor, quarantine means announcing the problem to the galaxy. This is an internal matter. You obviously don't appreciate the severity of this virus, but you needn't worry. No one is allowed to leave Cardassia. No one is currently being permitted to enter the atmosphere.
I cannot imagine you can contain the population without a reason. Just how bad is it?
Oh, I've given them a reason, Doctor, but you shouldn't worry about that. There are more important things requiring your focus right now.
Of course, okay. How many are infected?
At last count, the virus had been contained to 3 continents. Nearly 68% of the population in those regions has been infected.
And you call it a minor issue, Garrett? That's a pandemic.
Doctor, when I say that the ill have developed a degenerative condition, I speak specifically of their thought processes. It is true that we have determined that it is a virus, a biological contaminant of sorts. But the Central Command is hardly a healthcare organization. And while the degeneration is affecting the cardiopulmonary system as well, all of the symptoms seem to be driven by misfiring neurons. And therein lies the problem.
A virus that affects the brain is no small problem. The fact that early infections are showing in terms of dysfunction, relatively mild symptoms, doesn't mean people won't start to die.
Yes, Doctor. And I have it.
My God, Garrick. You're infected.
Why do you think I contacted you? I want the best.
And hoping that my genetic enhancements will allow me to diagnose your symptoms without scanning equipment?
I really have missed your mistrust, Doctor. The physicians here have the tendency to avoid the necessary dispassion and for harder truths. You, however, have a refreshingly forthright bedside manner.
Wow, a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
You must be neurologically compromised. Well, of course, I'll do everything that I can. Do you know anything more about the virus? How is it passed on? How does it proliferate in the body? Have your doctors attempted any therapies that show any promise?
It seems to take several days to propagate in the carrier. During that time, sufferers develop a rather serious cough that diminishes after it reaches the brain. So our current assumption is that it spread through the air. Most hospitals have been closed to all but the infected to try and control the outbreak. As a result, our doctors are learning from their patients as they're treating them. As it stands now, they can only treat symptoms. Medical staff is reporting to external bodies to ensure that anyone studying the infection isn't also battling a neurological disease. Progress is limited and all too slow.
Garak, I'm not sure how I can help you if I can't examine you or access your data.
Doctor, I'm afraid I can't allow you to put yourself at risk. After all, I'm counting on you to save us all. And I believe that an outside perspective may be exactly what we need.
So no pressure.
You're a bright man, Doctor. Put that genetically enhanced brain of yours to work.
Well, I can't examine you from orbit. My shuttlecraft sensors may be able to tell me that you're alive. They can isolate you for transport, but they can hardly determine more than the most modest of life signs. And while I can see outward symptoms, Garak, I can't for the life of me figure out how to see through your skull. I suppose I could transport a tricorder down there for a preliminary scan.
I'm afraid I can't allow that, Doctor.
Oh, of course you can't. Can you send me your most recent medical scans?
Unfortunately, no.
And why not?
All of my genuine medical records are routinely deleted and replaced with falsified data. All data rods in which those records once existed have been destroyed. All computers in which the data rods were placed have been vaporized. My dear doctor, I'm the leader of the Cardassian people. Especially now, I can't afford to broadcast my weaknesses to anyone who feels they could exploit them.
The more things change, the more they remain the same.
Meaning?
A presumption of godliness, most certainly a great paranoia. You haven't managed to find yourself a staff that you trust to protect your life. To be quite honest, I'm surprised your staff doesn't have implants that allow you to control them.
Oh, doctor, your assumptions hurt me deeply. Of course they do. If news of this infection gets out, and I can't be clearer than this, Cardassia will be devastated, and we won't be the only world that will fall.
Garak, you seem to believe that I can cure this virus from orbit without any information.
Well, Doctor, this virus doesn't only infect the average citizen. Everyone is at risk. Everyone. The government, the military. I mean, imagine if only a few of their people were infected. They find it difficult to concentrate. They're finding themselves susceptible to suggestion. And what if intelligence agents of foreign governments found their way to Cardassia during this crisis?
It could destroy the Cardassia that you've been rebuilding for over 2 decades.
Yeah.
But quarantine would keep foreign nationals off planet and keep the rest of us safe from infection, assuming it can even infect off-worlders.
Again, Doctor, it would announce the problem before we have a solution to
But it could help produce the solution you so desperately need.
The risk is too great, Doctor.
Garak! Lives are at stake.
Hundreds, perhaps thousands, to save billions. Doctor, will you help me?
First and foremost, I'm a doctor, Garak. And I'm your friend.
Yes. One more thing we should keep to ourselves.
You know, Garak, you are being more paranoid than usual.
Oh.
You remind me of the exiled tailor I met so many years ago.
Ah, but as you said yourself, Doctor, the more things change,
the more they stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
But Garak, so much has changed. You're the leader of your people.
Julian, let's drop the pretensions, shall we?
Whatever do you mean?
You know that I have rebuilt the Obsidian Order, and the reason that I know that you know is because I know that you are working for Starfleet intelligence. Your posting at Deep Space Nine is merely your cover. Why would a religious sanctuary like Deep Space Nine need a doctor of your capability with such a limited Starfleet presence? I must admit, you have done an excellent job of obscuring your intelligence role.
Dear Garrick. Have you been keeping tabs on me? I suppose of all people, you would be the only person I might be able to trust such information. Assuming any of your conclusions are true. But Starfleet still has a presence, and Deep Space Nine is still a major way station for commerce and diplomacy in the Bajoran sector.
Of course, you can trust me with sensitive information, Julian. At least until there's a reason you can't. Oh, but let's hope it never comes to that. I do like you. I did from the very beginning. You may be my only true friend. Since Mila's passing, our all too infrequent exchanges have been my only respite from a world without trust. The political world on Cardassia deplores a vacuum, and the old ways are clung to, even after the war. It took me years to bring Cardassians around to another way of thinking. The arts are celebrated, the people are fed. Life is no longer a struggle, but paranoia is rampant once more.
Then I suppose you've been the ideal leader.
Well, I do appear to have the appropriate skill set and experience, yes.
You could always go back to being a plain, simple tailor.
You would be surprised by how many of my old vocations I still dabble in. I've even taken up taxidermy. Yes, it's true. Stuffing a tribble isn't as challenging as perhaps a six-legged Mercassian marsupial, but it passes the time. And so many wonderful things fit inside an animal that need only trill to appear alive. But as you said, Julian, you are my friend. And one of the things I learned from working in the Obsidian Order under Nabran Tain was that friends are a liability. Enemies are easy. Friends are the challenge. When I was his protege, I had a job to do. Relationships were tools to achieve my objectives. I don't have time for friends. I don't have room for emotional attachments.
And then you were exiled.
And then I was exiled.
I had no idea.
About what?
Am I your only friend?
Well, the only one living.
You said that your cardiopulmonary system seems to be demonstrating symptoms consistent with this neurolytic virus.
Mm-hmm.
I need to at least access the database being used by the off-site researchers working on a cure.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Doctor. I've never been an ideal patient, as you well know. But while I trust you, I cannot risk any access that Starfleet intelligence might have built into your shuttle.
Garak, you're tying my hands. Do you have access to a medical scanner? Can you scan yourself?
I've been a tailor, a gardener, a spy. Who's to say I'm not a doctor as well?
I suppose stranger things have happened.
Oh, a shapeshifter saved the galaxy by going for a swim. A Starfleet captain turned out to be a god. A Cardassian legate turned out to be the devil. You were married to a woman, 3 centuries your senior. Stranger things, my dear doctor, happen all the time.
You may have a point. Although, to be fair, Dax is 300 years older, not Esri. Esri was several years younger than me.
Semantics, Doctor.
Ah, here we are.
I'm sorry?
I've created an encrypted backdoor to your central database.
Ooh, of course you did. Yes, but it won't help you. Our researchers are working in a closed system. It is impossible to access their research through the central network.
Damn it, Garak, I'm trying to help you. I encrypted the access. There was no danger to you or your people. I used a fractal regression to develop access points at either end.
And I sincerely appreciate your efforts, Julian. But that's why you're here. And of course, that is why I'm convinced no one else will be able to save us.
I cannot do this without any information about the pathogen. And even the smartest person in the galaxy would be hard-pressed to develop a cure to an unknown virus quickly enough to prevent its spread or knowledge of its existence to the outside world.
I have faith in you, Doctor. And to put your mind at ease, you should know that very few citizens on Cardassia are even aware that they are infected. And I've committed the order to a substantial misinformation campaign to keep it that way.
How long do you expect that to last? The longer the infected believe that they're free to live their normal lives or even to travel to and from health centers for treatment for whatever malady they believe they have, the faster the real virus will spread.
Well, it seems that symptoms vary in their intensity. The cough can be persistent or periodic. And when that initial symptom passes, the neurological symptoms cause sufferers to present a variety of ailments. It is only those doctors who discovered the virus and were subsequently visited by some associates that are aware of the larger problem. And they are the very physicians currently researching the virus on my behalf.
If you are able to contact them, then there's no reason that I can't access their data.
Doctor, we've been through this.
Garak, we've been through a lot of things.
Yes.
You didn't call me here to explain Cardassia's post-war isolationist bureaucracy. I came because a friend in need asked me.
You didn't know why I called you doctor. So please, don't offer me your selfless pretense.
Pretense? You think after all this time, your lies and deceptions would keep me from helping you? I can tell when you're lying, Garak. And you know when I'm telling the truth. I promise you that no one will ever know about your role in the cover-up of the virus. At least not from me.
I want you to set a course for the southern polar region of Cardassia Prime. The magnetic interference will make it more difficult for prying eyes to access your subspace signal. You'll find that my alleged paranoia has a purpose.
Computer set course 118, Mark 72.
Acknowledged.
Engage at 1/4 impulse.
Course laid in.
My signal was encrypted from the very beginning. I assume the same is true of the signal you used to isolate and redirect my subspace carrier wave. Isn't it a little bit late to begin worrying now, Garrett?
Our signal may be secure between one another, but any system can be breached given enough time and expertise. And what I have to tell you.
Just tell me, Garak. I'm over the polar region as you asked.
Yes, so you are. Now, good. Wait. Good. Now that we're comfortably alone, let me ask you this. Do viruses normally pop up undetected in a population with little to no prior warning? And how many unknown pathogens exist in a planetary ecosystem with our level of technological development?
Well, to be quite honest, pathogens can unexpectedly adapt or cross species barriers. Centuries ago on Earth, industrial pollution led to a climate change which in turn caused previously isolated microorganisms to be released into the biosphere.
Yes, you truly have an answer for everything.
It comes in handy. But I suspect you're going somewhere with this, so please continue.
Our research has found some peculiarities in the viral RNA. Admittedly, I don't understand all of the specifics, but to put it bluntly, the virus has been engineered. I'm sending you 2 images of the viral RNA we've discovered. The images are all that I can risk sending you now. If you can find the source, you may find a cure. Alternatively, if a cure was not developed, you can avenge my death.
Not currently one of my skill sets, Garrick. But why the pretense? You could have told me this immediately. Actually, don't answer that. I'll need some time to do an analysis of this to determine what might work to counteract the viral infection. Annoyingly, there is no systemic treatment that I can even begin to research without knowing the underlying cause. But over the last 25 years, you must have made all sorts of new enemies. According to the latest intelligence, the only dangerous political intrigue is coming out of the Romulan Empire these days.
Yes, well, leading a government comes with its own risks, to be sure, Doctor. But why do they have to be new enemies? Of course, the Romulans have never been great fans of mine. I mean, I left their embassy's groundskeeping staff so many years ago. Oh, those poor orchids. They'll never be the same. And there's always Kai.
The Kai.
Ah, Kira. Kira, dear Kira, has never been a fan of mine.
We both know that Nerys would never work this slowly if she wanted to kill you.
No.
And she would only kill you. But Nerys is hardly the same person since she left the militia to join the Vedic Assembly. And now that she's the Kai, this level of genetic manipulation would have to be accomplished by someone with intimate knowledge of the Cardassian physiology, as well as the capacity to evade security of your medical system.
Yes, well, like I said, it is an internal Cardassian matter. I'm sure there are plenty of elder Cardassians who would enjoy watching my life come to an end from torture. Ducat's father, to one in Kanar-induced tryst with the man himself, to finally becoming involved with Ziel and whatever else.
Wait. Hang on, you and Ducat.
Oh, yes, surprising, isn't it? Yes. Two nights before my exile, I'd been feeling quite powerful. I wouldn't have normally lowered my guard, even among my fellow Cardassians. Ducat was enjoying his second bottle of Kanar. I was looking for someone to blame for his most recent failures to overcome the Bajoran resistance, and there I was. He promised my death from across Quark's bar. Later that evening, he found his way back to my table to apologize. Uncharacteristic, absolutely, to be sure. But Kanar can do that to a man. We stole away to a quiet corner on the second level to talk, and then we found our way to an unoccupied holosuite.
I don't know what to say.
Well, I don't need to tell you, Doctor. It was an unplanned direction for my evening to take. And suffice to say, it didn't soften Ducat's general opinion of me. He did keep his distance for a long time afterward.
So that story had a happy ending, if you'll pardon the pun.
Pun?
It'd be funny on Earth. Though tragic, too, sort of like a sad clown, really. Miles will love it.
You know, Doctor, could we perhaps find out what is slowly eating away at me before revealing my doctor's secrets to Professor O'Brien over an ale?
Of course. I think the first step is to cross-reference known immunogenic agents that could have been introduced into your system. Even if the virus is a new pathogen, its mode of infection could be a million different things. You should review your schedule and try and determine an environment over which your control was limited, a place where the food and drink could have been tampered with, or perhaps a place where you could have been unexpectedly exposed to an aerosol. But about this dalliance with Ducat.
Oh, Doctor, please. Provincial human attitudes aside.
Of course.
Your species didn't always have synthahol. And every species seems to go through a period of poor choices. Believe it or not, Cardassians are a passionate people, a people who yearn to find joy wherever it may lie. And remember that we were in the midst of a Bajoran occupation. There wasn't much joy to be had for those of us assigned to Tarak Nor. Decades later, my reforms are helping to shape a modern Cardassia.
Understood. Though I take exception to the word provincial.
Oh, of course you do. Now, let me take a look at my agenda. Of According to my doctors, I could have been exposed more than a month ago.
A month? Well, you certainly waited long enough to contact me.
Well, we do have doctors on Cardassia, and I wouldn't be much of a leader if I didn't look to my own people before seeking outside assistance. However, I'm not naive enough to trust them completely. And what kind of leader would I be if I did?
Fair enough. I need to get some biometric information, please, from you, if I'm even to begin researching a cure for this. Can you transport yourself to a hospital with proper scanning equipment that I can access?
Oh, dear. I can do better than that, Doctor. I can do better than that. My residence is equipped with some of the best holographic technology in the quadrant. What type of equipment do we need?
I didn't realize Cardassia had made such strides in holography.
Oh, the technology is Federation, actually. Cardassian engineers build wonderful ships, but their work with artificial intelligence isn't what it should be. Political life has its perks. I even have an EMH.
Well, can I talk to him?
Doctor, he's obviously offline during this crisis. We're wasting time better spent on the issue at hand. Now, shall we begin?
All right. Well, the first thing we'll need is a standard biobed with a
Doctor, wait. I'm detecting a coherent signal directed at your shuttle. Yes, the magnetic currents over the poles should have obscured your presence. We may have a problem.
Hang on. It looks like an encrypted subspace signal, but I can't determine the origin. Stand by. I'm trying. It's from Earth. I think I've got it. One moment. Jake.